Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Lost Voice radio program, where we seek to uncover the lost voice that once spoke to Socrates some 2,300-ish years ago. This is Jacob Nelson, along with my illustrious co-host, Jonathan Studi.
And of course, the illustriousness doesn't apply to my clout or my status or anything like that. It actually refers to the fact that if I take my shirt off in the sun, it reflects.
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I was thinking just now.
Was it?
It was.
Moose!
Yes. So today's show is, there's positives and negatives to the various ways that we present our show. Live is great because it's unedited, so we can't edit out crazy stuff. We can also take callers. Today, however, it is a recorded show, which is great because it means that we can be in the same room together, which is always a pleasant treat.
Right, this entire show is all pre-recorded. In fact, neither Jake nor I are actually in the same room talking to one another. Rather, what we did is we recorded a script, and we are exchanging the script and recording small bits and pieces with one another.
So you're looking at this like a ransom note of letters cut out of a newspaper and magazine pasted onto a piece of paper?
Well, Jacob, as per your heritage and your family style, I figured you'd be very good at...
you leave the family out of it.
At ransom notes and cutting things out of newspapers. I'm just saying, you like crafting.
That's fair.
You like crafting.
Yes.
Come on, Jake. It has
I
nothing
like
to do
to
with
craft things. One might say I'm crafty.
Yes.
Yes,
quite.
Indeed.
Mm.
So what's been new?
I'm sorry, guys.
We didn't have a show last week. There were some technical issues because the interim music between shows just kept playing and playing and playing and playing and playing some more into our hour, and so we couldn't do our show last week. So we come again to the show this week. So, John, Mr. Studi, anything new in the last 2 weeks or so that you wish to share during our obligatory nonsense segment?
Now, if it were the case that I had my son's guitar, which I could make happen, I would sing you a country song. However, to spare the listeners even more torture, which they normally...
Both the indignity of country music and the indignity of your voice.
Yeah, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, I that's perfect. I can't imagine that being a better... a more well-phrased summary about what happened.
Well, I have an illustrious career in radio and wordsmithing. Mostly just the wordsmithing, though.
Wordsmithing. I've always loved that. I remember wordsmithing once over a hot fire.
Yes.
Yes. But anyway, so last 2 weeks, let's see, I lost my job, my dog died, I brought my kid to the hospital twice. It was great.
Yes.
Everything's fine. The dog died, so nobody's suffering anymore, particularly me, for pick up her poop all around the house.
One person suffering.
Okay,
come on.
my wife suffered. So the dog was my wife's 13th... Well, it was a present for my wife's 13th birthday. And she got to pick her out. And there's been
Just to be clear, this birthday was many years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Many, many years ago. Okay, maybe not many, many years ago. My wife isn't old. She's 27. So that's not too bad. It's 14 years. But anyway, the dog was suffering a lot. She had some sort of nerve disorder that was causing her to lose all sensation in her hind legs. And
That's not good.
No, it wasn't. And she was pooping all over the house because it also impacted those nerves, and she was unable to control her poop factory. And it was not great to wake up every morning to a big pile of daisy crap, and my wife did not feel as if it was necessary to get her a doggy diaper or anything like that. And I'm thinking, it'd be great if we could. I'm sure they're expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have to take it off because she could still, she still urinate, which was good because I'd rather have to only pick up one one waste product that rather than two. I mean, although I do have to pick up urine every once in a while because I have 3 kids. One of them is convinced. Never mind. Not going to go down that road. Actually, Michael, he's funny. He'll pee there was one time where I let him pee in public, and since then he's just like, I can pee anywhere.
Oh boy,
oh boy. And my favorite one was we were at the Maple Grove Central Park, and he says he has to pee, and I said, "Okay, Michael, let's go potty." He says, "No, I'll just do it right here," and he drops his pants, he pees. And he just spins in a circle, and he draws it. Actually, it was a perfect circle with his feet. I was very proud of him. Like, yeah, this is a good coordination shot.
Oh my goodness,
this isn't too bad. But anyway, so the dog died. Michael's fine. He's my son who went to the hospital. He had croup, and we didn't know exactly what was going on. His oxygen level is very low, but he's good. And me not having a job is actually nice too. I resigned from my youth ministry position, and I considered wearing 2 American flags around that day. And so that way, when people asked me what was going on, I could just shout, "Freedom!" Or
more properly, that would be the Scottish flag.
Yeah, it could. But, America's free, right?
Right.
Land of the free, home of the brave. Oh, and it feels good to be done with that. Although, at the same time, I'd really like to have a job.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, I have a ton to do anyway. I still got to put together some stuff for the Dead Philosophers website, the Society website, and then I wrote a few things for Notre Dame that I want to submit, and I have an academic journal and some school papers I need to write for. So, it's not like I'm not going to be busy. Heck, in fact, I couldn't even wait a day and sit on my hands. I got to work right away, networking, and
well, if you sit on your hands, they tend to go numb.
They do, but they're very warm.
Well, this actually kind of brings up a point of synergy. Things coming together. That this radio show actually started off the heels of founding the New England Didache academic journal. Do you want to share an update of where that's at?
Yes. That's all.
Okay, well, you want to share, so what is there to share?
Oh, okay, you actually know what to say, okay.
Yes.
I feel like we've done that before.
Yeah, probably.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, so I'm going to be synergizing the New England Didache with the Dead Philosophers Society, which will involve a bit of restructuring of both organizations. And odds are I'm going to be the next president of the United States.
Huh. Okay.
I'm not eligible, though. Sad.
No, you're not.
I have to be 35.
That's right.
I could change my dirt.
And you have to be a legal U.S. citizen.
I'm an illegal U.S. citizen?
Naturally born here.
I'm not naturally born anywhere.
I know. You have no soul.
I wasn't naturally born either. It was rather disturbing experiments. I remember the syringes, the saws.
Oh, okay, moving on.
I'm sorry, I went somewhere else.
Clearly.
But no, the DPS is going to be moving forward. We're going to be changing the website, because if you've ever been onto the Dead Philosopher website, it's a little bit sad. Last 2 guys did a great job running it, and I think they have some good programs underway, and they were very responsive and responsible for all the content. But there's a few things I want to do to make the Dead Philosopher Society of Holy Apostles much more active. And for those of you who don't know, the Dead Philosopher Society is the alumni association for Holy Apostles College and Seminary, or even just generally the student association. And if you become a member of the Dead Philosopher Society, you receive updates about jobs, job offerings, happenings at Holy Apostles, and updates with people who are who've recently, or people who've graduated Holy Apostles and are producing books or going to conferences and the like. So you can get a lot of information about what's going on at Holy Apostles, in other words. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping to do a few more things, like allow for members to have a mentor in job market searching, or do once a month philosophy and beer, spirits and beer, something like that. Yes. Spirits and philosophy, or spirit of philosophy. There we go.
Right.
Where we drink alcohol and Skype conference and talk about some sort of highfalutin philosophy stuff.
Highfalutin
philosophy stuff, and just absolutely be ridiculous.
Is that like a piccolo?
Huh?
A highfalutin?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little tiny thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're going to piccolo via Skype for the
We
Dead
are.
Philosopher Society?
Uh-huh. And
Sounds like fun.
It's going to be like the Pied Piper, and I'm going to lead them all away from Ireland.
And off a cliff?
Well, Socrates does say in the Apology that philosophy is preparation for death and dying.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, it's a good update. I'm glad those things are coming together, and yeah, sounds good. Today we thought we would take some time and give voice to an increasing chorus of voices over the scandal with ex-Cardinal McCarrick, and I'm sure probably all of our listeners, if not most of our listeners, already know a great deal of what's going on there, but it'd be good to go through some of the stuff and just give a voice to it, because the reality is, if we stop talking about it, it goes away. And that's the last thing that needs to happen. We need, as lay faithful, to continue to talk about this and to challenge our priests and our bishops to not allow the scandal of Archbishop, former Cardinal McCarrick, to fade away or to fall into the darkness again, like a cockroach into the dark crevices. We need to keep McCarrick in the light, and this issue in the light, if we are to have hope of cleansing out the corruption that's within Mother Church. I believe it was John the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Paul the 6th, that said the smoke of Satan has already entered the bride of Christ, or has entered the church. And we need to work diligently to get the smoke of Satan out of the church and restore the glory, the former glory of Mother Church. In order to do that, we need to talk about these issues, as difficult as they may be, because the reality is many bishops have done a poor job addressing this, if they have addressed it at all. And so we need to support our good bishops and challenge those who are finding this challenging to speak about, and support our good priests as well. The sense of faith that we lay faithful have is a very important part of the church that we need to keep vibrant and loud. There are many voices talking about what the church should be, how the church should update, how the church should do this or that. And it's high time that the faithful voices in the church have an even louder voice, demanding orthodoxy, demanding accountability, demanding purity of faith and purity of lifestyle for all who have pledged themselves to Christ, whether they be bishops, cardinals, archbishops, the Holy Father, priests, deacons, monsignors, and also the lay faithful. And so we thought we would take the opportunity today, despite the difficulty, but also because of how difficult it is, to talk about this issue with former Cardinal McCarrick, and to just have this difficult conversation, one that many of you have likely already read up a great deal on, but we thought we would lend our voice here on the Lost Voice program to this current issue. So with that, John, I don't know maybe where you want to start or where to go from here, but to talk about this and move forward through some of the details without getting too deep in some of the sordid details, but enough to be able to actually talk about this and what we ought to do as lay faithful and what the clergy ought to do as well.
Well, it was, I can't say it's shocking. And I think that one thing that prepared me for this more than anything else was the drug-fueled homosexual orgy that happened at
this is what, a year and a half ago.
I remember coming to you, because you're usually get more up on more things, more up on things about the Curia and what's going on inside the church than I am. And that's not really something that bothers me quite a bit. that impels me to do a lot of research into it, and I brought this up to you, and I said, Jake, what do we even do about this? You just usually you have some sort of something to say about canon law, or like a bishop who said this such and such, and there's going to be this sort of procedure that's happening, and then you just pursed your lips and shrugged your shoulders and looked at me and said, I don't know. This sounds like a movie. I mean, how bad could it get to have? How much worse could it get than having?
I mean, it's almost like Dan Brown wrote a nonfiction.
Yeah,
book,
a nonfiction book. Yeah. Really. So after hearing that and knowing that it was what was in the buildings that were reserved for people who were part of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, right?
Mm-hmm. The people who are in charge of establishing Orthodox faith throughout the church.
Right.
Cocaine. Now, to be clear, the priest who was charged with this crime in the Vatican a year and a half ago was not part of the CDF.
Okay.
He was, I think, renting an apartment from the CDF in which he had his cocaine-fueled orgy.
I just can't even get around this. I mean, does this really happen? And just, yes. But when all when the stuff with McCarrick came to light about him coming on to seminarians and being awkward with priests and minors, and it being covered up, and knowing the fact that priests priests and lay people have written into the Vatican about some of the goings on. It's painful to know that this homosexual mafia, this gay mafia that I think Pope Benedict has said something about.
Well, Pope Benedict, I don't think, said anything about it directly, but the rumor was one of the chief reasons he retired was that he didn't have the energy to take on the gay mafia any longer.
Oh, okay.
He knew of its existence, supposedly or allegedly. To my recollection, he never talked about it, but that was the widespread assumption as to why Pope Benedict resigned, because he knew he couldn't take it on. It needed to go, but he knew he wasn't the person to do it, because he just didn't have the energy anymore.
Yeah, and what gets me here is they're not, like they do with many things, addressing the actual issue that needs to be taken care of, which to some extent does have to do with homosexuality in the priesthood, because if you look at the cases, the vast majority of these abuse scandals are homosexual in nature. Granted, again, it is often some form of pederasty, usually with post-pubescent kids.
Right.
Nonetheless, still horrible.
Yeah.
But when Cardinal Wuerl gave an interview at a Knights of Columbus meeting.
This is a whole nother issue, by the way.
It is.
But it's linked with the McCarrick issue, but this is one of the chief reasons that people don't trust the bishops anymore.
Yeah.
Wuerl has no clue what's going on, so he can claim ignorance of the needs of the faithful, which is bad enough for a shepherd, or he would have to claim complete contempt for the faithful, thinking that we're stupid, or he's trying to cover up his own wrongdoings. Because the statement that you're about to talk about is so far removed from any kind of sense of pastoral theology that it boggles the mind.
Well, he says it's clericalism is the issue.
Yeah, clericalism is an issue here, but what else did he say?
What do you have in mind, Jake?
He said, this is not some large crisis. This is a disappointment.
Yeah.
Seriously?
This is not some large crisis at the level of bishops
and you know what else?
Systematically protecting.
And you know what his solution was to fixing this?
What?
That bishops need to investigate fellow bishops. That's what they tried in 2002 with the Dallas Charter. By the way, Cardinal McCarrick changed the wording in the Dallas Charter, which gave us the wonderful tool of Virtus, by the way. Yeah. So
Thanks.
The Dallas Charter was in response to the abuse crisis in the late 90s and early aughts. McCarrick was one of the chief people who wrote that charter and approved it. he changed the language in the charter from, what was it? I think it was that clerics need to be accountable. He changed it from clerics to priests. What does that do?
Like excludes bishops.
It excludes bishops.
And deacons.
Yeah. And Whirl wants to have bishops investigate bishops.
Right.
How is that going to solve anything when we have very good reason to believe that bishops were covering for McCarrick?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that in part because I forget the guy's name, but there's a bishop who lived with McCarrick in Newark or in D.C. or both, I don't remember, and said he has no recollection of any of this going on.
Sure you don't.
I had no idea this was happening. He also, that same bishop, had a close liaison, I don't remember if he lived with him or not, of the founder of the Legionaries of Christ, Father Marcel Marcial, who was found out to be an abuser himself. And again, this guy had no idea that Marcial had this going on. So we're to believe this guy has no idea. I think that's hard to believe. And so the idea of bishops investigating bishops when there's some evidence or at least some good reason to believe a bishop was covering for McCarrick, not to mention seminarians and priests wrote to the Vatican about what was happening.
Were kind of like the knowledge was, we don't know because nothing's been proven, but even lay people said, but we know.
Yeah, and they were writing to the Vatican, and what happened?
None.
Nothing that we know of.
Right. But
I mean, not every disciplinary measure is public knowledge, but I mean, for the guy to continue to be an archbishop and a cardinal is reprehensible.
Right. But then you can, you or I get busted for teaching about sin in the church, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things that gets me is...
well, maybe you get busted for being a sinner, but I know I'm perfect, so I don't get busted.
Well, I mean... I do get busted for being a sinner as well, but even talking about it and saying that there's a distinction between venial and mortal sin.
Right. I got ripped for that at my last job.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that. It's just like, you do want kids to go to hell?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you?
Yeah, priest saying that teenagers can't commit mortal sins, or me talking about mortal sin is too scary for teenagers.
Them being a teenager is a mortal sin. That's basically all my opinion is on that.
That might be a little bit of an overreaction.
I'm a theologian. I can say what I want.
You're a philosopher.
Hey, technically, I'm a theologian because I have a master's in theology.
That's true.
My master's in philosophy is pending.
It's pending, yeah. Mine is too. I have one class left. I'll be graduating this December with my second master's degree.
The high five was awkward because you weren't entirely sure if I was going to reach across the table and give you a high five.
Yeah, I know.
That'll be great. I'm looking forward to finishing my program as well. But in any case, it seems like this whole the clericalism thing just isn't true in terms of that being the primary issue. Obviously, there is a culture that has developed within the church that's accepting of many aberrant practices with respect to sexuality.
Yeah.
And there's been a laxity of that for, I think, a number of reasons. And the clerical, the hierarchy of the church, like all predators, is kind of being used as a screen or as a way to access certain individuals. Or, and I think that Cardinal Orwell is speaking some truth here as a way of protecting yourself. Because if you have a certain amount of authority and ability to hide things and to protect and to have a network of people who are have a certain amount of clout to protect yourself, then it's going to make it so that if you do go against the teachings of the church and commit some grave sin in this regard, it's going to be a lot easier for you to not get caught. It's a political ring. It's the same thing that happens just about everywhere. We've heard about, and of course you can't confirm anything about this, but we've heard about the secret sex island of Bill Clinton.
Oh my
some
goodness!
of his people.
Yeah,
I mean, not to like go on a crazy tangent.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, with Jeffrey Epstein and
I think it's Jeffrey.
a few other people. where they've more or less sworn a pact to one another, and they go there and do their thing.
Dirty things.
Dirty, horrible things.
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
But...
and it's clear that Epstein, he's a registered sex offender, so he has done heinous things. Mm-hmm. But it's largely believed that he's taken Clinton, among other notable people, to this secret island, which is like beyond grotesque.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's move on.
And now the obvious answer here is that there should be an investigation, and where there has been illegal activity, it should be the secular authority. The police should be involved with this. When it comes to certain elements of ecclesial concern, then my opinion is that it should be lay people who have a certain amount of interest and skill in investigation and in theology as well, so that way they're able to understand the church's teaching. My concern would be who would choose these people. And so this is really the hard part, is that when we're looking at a scandal like this, if, let's say, just for the sake of argument, the scandal goes all the way to the top, Pope Francis. Mm-hmm. Who is it that will make the decisions? And it's Pope Francis. If he selects a committee to investigate the bishops, who's to say that these people aren't going to be plants? They're not going to be not going to already have the conclusion established beforehand about who's committed what, if anything. So it's kind of a difficult situation. What do you think ought to be done here, Jake?
What do I what?
What do you think ought to be done here? How do we keep accountability?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, it's important to understand that not all are called to the same action. We look at St. Paul, and he talks about how different parts of the body of Christ have different gifts and talents, and are called to do different things. The vast majority of people are called to deeper prayer and penance. Those with some voice and some authority or some standing are to give some voice to the issue, and those with large standing and large voice ought to give a large standing or voice or challenge in this issue. And so the first step is understanding what gifts and talents each of us have and our current standings. So, you're a stay-at-home mom, taking care of kids. One of the good or best practices here to clear out the church of this corruption is to offer the daily difficulties and penances for reparation for the church. Mm-hmm. For those with, say, a radio show, not to hide from it, but to talk about it. And quite honestly, for some people, we can kind of say what we want because we don't get paid for this show. So, go ahead and fire us. Whatever.
You lose your best host.
But, yeah.
No offense to the other people here.
Though, Dr. Mafuda regularly reminds me that the dead guy with a radio show has better ratings than we do.
Does he?
Yeah. Usually.
Oh, what a mean guy.
Yeah. But Dr. Mafuda is great.
Yeah,
there's no anger or resentment here whatsoever for such comments.
It's okay, Jake.
Anyway.
Let me pour you some more.
But, for some people, it might mean putting their career on the line. And when your radio show is your income, is your career, if you're in a diocese that the bishop is wanting things to be a little more quiet, that might pose some difficulty for you. But we're in a time in the church when we have to truly battle. And so it means ultimately making sacrifices. If you're staying at home, it means joyfully sacrificing those difficulties. If you're in a career where you can give voice, it means potentially sacrificing that income or that good for the sake of truth and holiness in Mother Church. And as scary as that is, in my house, we're a one-income family, and that would be scary to me to put my job on the line. But ultimately, if we're standing for the sake of truth and goodness and the beauty of the church, then of course God is going to provide that income and provide for your families if you're pursuing those good things. Of course, we don't do things that are inflammatory. One of the things that is really driving me a little bit crazy are the lay people who are saying how widespread and rampant homosexuality is in seminaries, or how every bishop is guilty, or every priest is guilty, or things like this. And the reality is, to make such hyperbolic statements actually gives cover to those trying to cover things up, because then they can just look at that and say, see, we can't have lay people investigate. They're all unhinged. They all think we're all guilty. So I think it's really important that when we do have a voice, or we can talk about it, to be very specific in our wording and be careful how broad of a statement we make. Mm-hmm. There are a great number of bishops who are doing their best to speak out against McCarrick and speak out against those who covered up for him. Mm-hmm. There are a good number, it seems, that are either silent or are giving weak statements, or who knows what they're doing. So I think it's important not to paint with a broad brush, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's a quote from Archbishop Fulton Sheen when he was speaking at a Supreme Convention of the Knights of Columbus in 1972. And I think this is pretty relevant to what we're saying right now, is who is going to save your church? Not our bishops, not our priests and religious. It is up to you, the people. You have the minds, the eyes, and the ears to save the church. Your mission is to see that priests act like priests, your bishops act like bishops, and your religious act like religious. And kind of what this makes me think of is would be a Catholic monarchy, in which the kings are actually called princes or prime ministers, and they're the prince or the prime minister of who? Well, Christ the King. And they are responsible to the people insofar as they're responsible to people in that they must rule according to the king's desires and the king's way. The problem is that at this time there are a lot of priests who aren't living up to their duty, or the bishops who aren't living up to their duties, and so we need to find ways to challenge the bishops and challenge the system, and make a real change. And I don't remember who it was, but there was somebody who wrote an open letter to his bishop, stating that he refused to partake in the USCCB's yearly donation. What's it called again? It's
I don't remember
either. Anyway, so that's, I think, one great way to really make them feel a sting is if we start if the faithful, who have usually offered some sort of financial contribution to the church, start threatening to pull out and to not donate. Yeah, and the problem comes in, obviously, if you're not serving people, but then you find different ways to send that money to people who need help.
Right. I think the pulling the money is one thing, because obviously if these prelates are so worldly that they think that an abuse crisis and cover-up by other prelates is merely a disappointment and not something reprehensible, they are already given into the spirit of the world. And so, pleading to that bishop or cardinal to, please be our shepherd, please be a good shepherd, is probably not going to be effective. And sadly, money is probably going to speak more boldly to those kinds of people. Again, not every bishop. But I think it's important that we don't stop giving altogether.
Right.
If you live in a diocese that is committing questionable things right now, maybe don't give to the diocese yearly. Here in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, we have a yearly diocesan appeal, and it does a lot of good work. If you live in a diocese that is doing some questionable things and you have an appeal like that, maybe don't give directly to the appeal, but give directly to a scholarship for a seminarian. Or, if that appeal helps support a Newman Center, go give directly to the Newman Center.
Right.
And this not only cuts out perhaps some of the funding of bishops who are not doing what they ought to do, but it also is in the spirit of subsidiarity. That you're giving directly to the one in need instead of funneling it through some big bureaucracy. But, you know, and I've read a number of authors who have talked about this idea of giving up giving to the bureaucratic side of the church. And you know, I will say that there are good things that dioceses and even the USCCB have done, are doing, or are capable of doing. And they rely on the generosity of the lay faithful to support that. But at the same time, if we're going to give, we should give with eyes wide open to what is going on around us. You know, you look at some of the supposed charitable organizations that are out there, Susan G. Komen. People give to that thinking they're supporting breast cancer research, when in fact a lot of that money ends up going to Planned Parenthood. And what's one of the chief causes of breast cancer? Abortion.
Yeah, and birth control pills.
Yeah. And so we're giving money to a breast cancer research firm that's actually giving money to an entity that increases breast cancer. You know, so that is an example. We ought to be aware, as much as we're able to be, where our money is going. And for some of these bishops, that's the only thing that's going to speak to them. I think not giving money, or giving money in a very specific way, is a fair answer to the issue. And I think another answer is to write to our bishops and priests. You know, what is your stance? I haven't heard what your stance is on this yet. Because we as the lay faithful have a right to know Orthodox teaching, and to know that our shepherds are taking care of us. You know, we ought to know our shepherds. And one of my coworkers came to me. He's very upset about this situation. He came to me and was talking about this, and he said, you know, yes, be wary of wolves in sheep's clothing, but be even more wary of wolves in shepherd's clothing. I thought it couldn't have been said better. You know, and so we need to have an awareness. We need to still be generous with our gifts, our talents, our money, everything else, but maybe be generous in a manner that is very specific, so that money can't be used for various abuses, not even sexual abuse or cover-ups, but other various abuses. And this I think ultimately will help make clear a lot of fuzziness in the church, but there's going to be growing pains as we go through this.
Right, and I think that one of the bigger issues here is that it's going to damage, and already has damaged, the church's moral reputation, or that was already, or moral authority, which is already eroding quite a bit. And part of the reason why I say this is that some of the sex abuse scandals that have happened in Hollywood, the secular people took a stronger and firmer action with these things than a lot of the bishops have here. If we're covering up for McCarrick, and it's a huge network, and now we're making excuses for the reason why we've covered this up. But there is a huge movement within Hollywood to expose people who have been forced to sit on the casting couch in order to make it to the positions in Hollywood that they are hoping to have. Then how is it that these people who in their movies and in their personal lives promote so many other immoral acts are more responsive to those who have been predators on others sexually? Like Kevin Spacey, for instance, he was in a huge show, and despite the fact that the show was making House of Cards, despite the fact that the show was making tons of money for the network and everything, he was fired from it. He was the main character. And that's incredible. I mean, like, what do you do with the show after the main character's gone? Nothing. So
they're gonna try.
And so it's really difficult. It's incredible that they're willing to make such incredible sacrifices or take such risks in order to disassociate themselves from people who have committed heinous crimes. Makes me sad.
Yeah.
We should be doing a lot more as a church. We're held to a higher standard.
We are. We're doing our part, Studi.
I hope so.
Yes.
I'll be writing a letter myself at some point here.
You ought to.
I will.
Yes.
I'm technically a theologian, so I can offer
Yeah.
respectful critiques of the church.
I'm a theologian too.
So I'll be offering some respectful critiques of the church, and also some of the handling of the death penalty and the catechism thing, which is another topic for another day.
Is it? Do you want to talk about it right now?
I don't know what time. How much time do we have?
We have 20 minutes, but I think it would be good to finish your story today.
Finish it? Oh gosh, okay, I can handle that.
Save our listeners a little bit of time.
Yeah, we can probably finish it up. It's fine.
Yeah. So I mean, we probably have 7-8 minutes. You want to talk about the death penalty thing? Because I mean, it's a big issue that was, to begin with, not entirely clear, but clear enough. And with the bishop, or with Pope Francis's letter regarding the change in the catechism, has made it even less clear. So I don't know if you do want to talk about it right now.
Sure.
Okay.
Oopsie, not first.
Sure.
I typed something wrong. And that's one thing that gets me about this, is that it's not so much that there was confusion about this and that the church was torn asunder by the death penalty as if it were some sort of new Arian heresy.
Came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so, what is it? I had one of my students of Holy Apostles messaged me on Facebook and asked me, so what do you think of Pope Francis's statement here? And I said, I don't really think much about it, because I'm just a nobody theologian who's concerned about why this 10-year-old kid in front of me doesn't believe in God.
Right.
That's usually where I'm at with these things. But the more I'm learning about this, the less I'm convinced that it's not awful. Mm-hmm. Then it's not a problem. And what gets me here is that, again, there was no major division. The church wasn't being torn apart before Pope Francis said anything. But now that he did, and then made this stupid change to the catechism, he is causing dissension in the church. It's like he's intentionally trying to divide something. I mean, I can't say that.
We can't say he's intentionally doing it, because we don't know that.
Which is why I can't really say that. But let's see if I can find the exact wording here. No, they haven't changed it on the Vatican website yet. Let's see, let's do text. If you find it, Jake, let me know.
The actual wording?
Yep, and then also the context of it, because the context contradicts it. Which makes it invalid or something, right?
I didn't catch that.
Oh. Here we go. I think. But regardless, it seems to be entirely unwarranted pastorally speaking, and theologically, honestly stupid. And when my student asked me what my opinion about it was, again, I said, well, my opinion is generally that, if I were to give Pope Francis advice, it'd be to read and listen 4 times as much as he speaks, because God gave him 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
And if anything, he should eat ad tomum, and generally should preserve the teachings of the faith rather than try to advance them or unfold them artificially. Right. If it were the case that the Holy Spirit was moving in the church to clarify the church's teaching on the death penalty or another issue in a greater light, then it might be time to have a council on it. But the fact that he just kind of came out randomly and said, I'm going to make this change to the catechism, to me seems not good.
It's
to say the very least. It's unnecessary.
It seems rash in the manner it came about,
and that is a major problem. Here's the actual text, and I'll pull up in the rest of the catechism to talk about the context here real quick too. It says recourse to the death penalty on the part of legitimate authority following a fair trial is long considered an appropriate response to the gravity of certain crimes and an acceptable, albeit extreme, means of safeguarding the common good. Today, however, there is increasing awareness that the dignity of the person is not lost even after the commission of very serious crimes. In addition, a new understanding has emerged of the significance of penal sanctions imposed by the state. Lastly, more effective systems of detention have been developed, which ensure the due protection of citizens, but at the same time do not definitively deprive the guilty of the possibility of redemption. Consequently, the Church teaches, in light of the gospel, that the death penalty is inadmissible because it is an attack on the inviolable dignity of the person. And she works with determination for its abolition worldwide.
Go on, Studi.
And so, I mean, one, it's recognizing up top that it's been the long-standing tradition of the church that the death penalty does have a place. It does point to an increasing awareness of the dignity of the human person, which I think is true, with the personalism that came from people like Jacques Maritain and John Paul II, to mystic personalism and Catholic personalism. I think that we do have a great understanding of why people have rights prior to any political system, because of our relationship to God is created in His image and likeness, and so we have a duty to God to respect those who are created in His image and likeness. I think the one problem statement here is more effective systems of detention have been developed, which ensure the due protection of citizens.
Which is the case in some areas of the world, but not all.
But it's not. But part of punishment is more than just protecting the common good, but it's also retribution for the action that you've committed. It's paying for the crimes that you've done,
and it's also medicinal.
Yes, it's also medicinal.
And this is one of the things that I find difficult to reconcile. Is that even if we're to talk about the balm of mercy granted, giving somebody life in prison, which might be 60, 70, 80 years, how is that better for the criminal than the death penalty? Now, one would argue, well, they live for that much longer. But it also takes away the impending death, which may propel them on to conversion. If they have to spend 60, 70, 80 years in prison, they may not think about their impending doom. They may not ever consider the fact that they need conversion before they die. That sense of finality can really cause a hardened criminal to change course better than life in prison could. So I don't think it takes away the chance for conversion. In fact, I think sometimes the death penalty encourages conversion more than...
Well, recall Therese Lisieux. If you remember when she was a young girl, there was a murderer, Pranzini. And the newspaper article reporting on him said this: a triple murder was discovered, and this is March 17th, 1887, in Paris. A triple murder was discovered this morning in the Rue Montaigne. A courtesan named Monty, or Regnault, lay dead at the foot of her bed, with 2 gashes on her throat, while her servant maid and her daughter, a girl of 12, had been murdered in their bed. The supposed murderer is a man who mounted the stair just as the concierge was putting out the gas. He had vainly attempted to force a safe containing jewels worth over 200,000 francs, and is presumed to have taken the money from the victim's pocket. She was about 30 years of age. There are no traces of any struggle, but the occupants of the flat below heard a slight noise at 10 o'clock this morning. The concierge appears to have been accustomed to pulling the check strings about sunrise to let out the woman's visitors. And so this person had committed a pretty grisly murder. How many people was that dead? 3. And there was, and fairly brutally too. I mean, two gashes on her throat. I mean, that's a quick death, but that's personal. And that's terrifying to have your throat gashed, having blood coming out of you, and being able to feel yourself suffocating to death and go in and out of consciousness. And this guy was wholly unrepentant for quite a while. But as the date of his execution drew near, St. Therese Lisieux read about him, and she prayed for him daily and prayed for his conversion. And she was grief-stricken with the fact that this man had, up to the point of him stepping up into the gallows, was he hung or was he beheaded? I don't remember. But as he was about to be executed, he stopped and turned to a priest, kissed the feet of the crucifix, and begged for God's forgiveness.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for his impending death, his salvation never would have been, or may have never been actualized.
Yeah. No, and, to be fair, there's people on the other side like Alessandro Serenelli, who was the man who, I don't remember if he sexually abused or raped St. Maria Goretti. But Alessandro Serenelli spent some time in prison. He found conversion, left prison, joined an order of brothers, and was actually present at Maria Goretti's canonization along with her mother. And he went on and had some incredibly inspirational words, especially to young people, to guard against immorality, impurity, and objects of lust. And so Alessandro Serenelli didn't face the death penalty, but had a profound conversion as well.
And there's a similar one with David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam. Was... he killed 6 people, wounded 7.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very demonic in the way that his case came about. He said he was hearing voices, and a demon named Sam was telling him to do these things and controlling him. But while in prison, he ended up encountering another prisoner who he only saw once, who gave him the gospel, and he repented.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, he's been up for release from prison on a number of occasions, and he's refused it every single time because of he cites the horrible things that he did.
Wow.
And so he refuses to take any freedom that's being offered to him. Regardless, he's become a model prisoner and an example to many about how somebody can reach to the depths of demonic depravity and then be pulled up and living a life of virtue. I mean, the guy's not Catholic, mind you, which is one thing, but the fact that he's accepted the Holy Spirit into his life has been incredible.
Something good.
Yeah.
I would like to just bring up one thing quick, because and I think we should talk about this more next time.
Sure.
But it is an official teaching of the magisterium.
Yeah.
And with that, we should understand the 4 levels of assent that we are to give various teachings based on their authority. The first level and highest level would be on definitive declarations of revealed truth. These are truths having to do with faith or morals that the Church has officially recognized and defined as things directly revealed by God and transmitted to us either by way of sacred scripture or apostolic tradition. The kind of assent we are to give is that we must firmly believe this truth and give it divine faith. A contrary opinion, so if we don't believe this, we choose not to believe this kind of thing, would be formal heresy and the punishment excommunication. Examples of this would be on the Trinity, the Incarnation, the Eucharist, and the necessity of baptism. The second level would be definitive declarations of non-revealed truth. These truths regarding faith or morals are not necessarily directly revealed by God as a supernatural revelation, but are directly related to that revelation either historically or logically, and are thus implicitly or virtually revealed and are necessary in order to protect and conserve fittingly the deposit of faith. They include theological conclusions such as the canonization of a saint or approval of constitutions and truths of the natural order or natural law. The kind of assent which is to be given to this type of truth is called ecclesiastical faith, and we ought to give, we must firmly hold this truth, the definitive internal assent of mind and will. Practically speaking, this isn't really any different from the first level. Okay? The contrary opinion would be a rejection of truth of Catholic doctrine and loss of full communion. So if we disagree with, say, canonization of saints, we disagree with natural law, we should never then present ourselves for Holy Communion until we go to confession and amend our thinking. Something that falls into this would be contraception and abortion. It's not directly revealed by God per se, but it is part of the natural order, though contraception and abortion are both in Scripture as well. The third level, non-definitive obligatory teaching. These are statements regarding faith or morals given by the magisterium which do not intend to define a doctrine, but seek to explain more fully doctrine or warn against dangerous positions. Our personal response to this would be a religious submission of intellect and will. So we could disagree with it, but we still offer our religious submission and don't publicly speak out against it. A contrary opinion would be having an erroneous position, but we do not separate ourselves from the life of the church, though in some cases this certainly would be mortal sin. For example, holy days of obligation. We don't go to Mass on a holy day. That is a mortal sin. But notice that the church could change holy days or fasting regulations. We need to fast when the church says so, but the church could change those days and those regulations. The fourth level would be prudential judgments. These statements regarding faith or morals are meant to guide the Christian in the practice of the faith. They seek to help apply the doctrine and admonitions of the church for a particular time and place. The kind of assent that is asked of the Christian faithful is a loyal submission to the statement, trusting that the Holy Mother Church knows well how to aid her children in applying the faith in Christ in their daily lives. Personal response to this would be loyal submission. Contrary opinion would be one that is rash or dangerous. Some of the examples of this would be the bishops or the Pope's view on immigration, just war theory, economics. And I contend this is where the death penalty issue falls, is on that fourth level. Some people that I know are quite intelligent in church matters say it's more like the third level. I think that's, I don't know. I think you could make an argument potentially either way. I think it falls under the fourth.
I mean, the hard part for me here is that it's been such a clear and consistent teaching between the church fathers, the doctors of the church, every pope and bishop who's ever basically spoken on the issue for the last 2,030 years. Or so, if you want to go pre-Christ with the church. Which
right.
I don't think I'm willing to stake my life on that. And so when Pope Francis says something that's so clearly...
it doesn't seem to be in line with the church fathers.
No, it does not. And the admissibility as an attack on the inviolable dignity of the human person makes it seem like it's inherently wrong.
Right.
But it was only allowed due to the ignorance.
I think the only real way to reconcile this is to lean on him saying the circumstances of our time have changed. Mm-hmm. It's inadmissible due to the circumstance, which doesn't make it implicitly or intrinsically evil. But given the circumstances, we can't administer the death penalty. If the circumstances change, then the death penalty becomes admissible once again. I think that's the only way to truly reconcile all of this. Mm-hmm. I personally think it's a little bit on the weak side. The reasoning he gave, the way it was written, the context in which it was given. But given that we have to give some kind of loyal submission to the magisterium, I think in good faith we have to rely on this idea of change in circumstance and just go with that despite some of the less than pastoral implications of how it was done. Those are my thoughts on it. We have 2 minutes left.
Oh well, here's just one more thing about the death penalty that I wanted to bring up, and Catechism 2266, which is just the paragraph prior to it, the change. The efforts of the state to curb the spread of behavior harmful to the people's rights and to the basic rules of civil society correspond to the requirements of safeguarding the common good, which we've already spoken to. Legitimate public authority has the right and duty to inflict punishment proportionate to the gravity of the offense. Punishment has the primary aim of redressing the disorder introduced by the offense when it is willingly accepted by the guilty party. It assumes the value of expiation. Punishment, then, in addition to defending the public order and protecting people's safety, has a medicinal purpose as far as it must contribute to the correction of the guilty party, which is what I was bringing up before. I do wonder if life imprisonment is proportionate to the slaughter of another individual. Mm-hmm. I'm not totally sure that it is.
Right.
Dr. Edward Fazer wrote a great book about this, and he has some talks that
It came out like a week before this whole controversy.
No kidding, right? And just as a side note, everybody in the underworld of Thomistic philosophers knew that he had 3 books coming out. One on the 5 arguments for God's existence, which did not disappoint, and then we also knew they had one on the death penalty coming out and one on the philosophy of nature. And all of us were saying, we want the one on philosophy of nature. We're kind of tired of... we haven't heard much about that in a long time. So don't worry about the death penalty thing. But then he comes out with the philosophy of nature book last, which is we're still waiting for it. But in any case, one of the issues here is I think that Pope Francis is missing out on that piece in terms of his pastoral call or pastoral decision. But anyway, you have 6 seconds left, so this is the Lost Voice Radio. Call and email us at the place, you know the right email. God bless.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.